Hello, Taylor Elwood here with the Sacred Masculinity podcast. And I want to talk about a really important topic, which is how to set boundaries and maintain them as a spiritual discipline. Now, I've definitely been that man who has not been good at having boundaries. I've had porous boundaries in the past where, I basically let people walk all over me and have their way with me. And it's not a good feeling. And I'll admit that I'm still working on that, as I think all men who are recovering nice guys are. I'm a recovering nice guy, so I know, this is kind of a reality of life. One of the things that I find really important about doing this work around maintaining boundaries as a spiritual discipline is that it's not just about the psychological level. A lot of men's work focuses in on the psychological level. What are we going to change about you? On the psychological level. And that's important. But on a spiritual level, maintaining boundaries is also about is really about standing in your power as the sacred man, standing in your power as the king, and knowing that you have what it takes to protect yourself, protect your family, and that you know how to set proper boundaries with your coworkers, with your boss, with your wife or your husband, or with your friends or community. Like, you know when to say, this is something I need to protect. And you know how to do it in a manner where it's not absolutely rigid, but where it's not porous. This is important. This concept of creating a boundary really evolves from learning how to work with Saturn, Saturnic energy. Now, if you're not into astrology, I get it, but I'm going to say that this concept of Saturn, this comes from astrology, and it comes from this idea that Saturn is the boundary keeper. Saturn was the last planet that was discovered with the naked eye. Um, it was for ancient people. It was the planet that was like the last one that they could really see and discover, and so it was consequently held to be the planet of limitations, the boundary between the solar system and everything else. Of course, we know better now. We know there are other planets beyond Saturn, but it's interesting because Saturn is still very much has that presence and perspective. And this is without even getting into the classical mythology around, the Titan Saturn, or the Greek god, or the Greek version Cronus. Now, there's something also to note is that if we look at Saturn from an astrological perspective, traditional astrologers treat it as a malefic force. I think that if we really look at it in the context of what it is, it's really about teaching us how to honor our boundaries and respect them. So when I look at doing sacred masculine work, one of the mysteries that I explore is the mystery of Saturn and the mystery of how to embody proper boundaries in our lives from a spiritual perspective. Part of the way that we do that is that we set up our lives around the specific routines that we want to perform, around the things that we want to do that are important to us. So, for example, in the morning, I get up and I do my stretches and I do some exercises with my core. I do this every day before I go to work because it helps set the tone of the day. It's me choosing to take care of myself above anything else. It's me saying my physical health has value, and I'm doing it for a few reasons. I'm doing it because I want to take really good care of myself. I'm doing it because I want to feel good in my body, and I'm doing it because I want to be attractive to my partner and to anybody else that might be interested in me. So these are things that I really care about. That's part of, but it's also about me setting a boundary as a spiritual discipline. If I don't start my day this way, then I'm not setting that discipline. The same thing applies for meditation. I meditate each day. And I usually meditate during my lunch break for my job. And this is a way for me to take care of myself. Sometimes I'll meditate late in the evening as well when I'm doing Qigong. But this is another way for me to take care of myself. And it's about setting a boundary on a spiritual level, but allowing that boundary to then transcend and go into the rest of my life. Of course, these are personal boundaries that I'm setting for myself, but they're around activities that have value to me. I also recommend learning how to set boundaries around aspects of your life that matter to you, that are in relationship to other people. So, for example, one boundary might be with your partner, that you say to that person, "Look, I'm not going to tolerate or accept you swearing at me. You can express that you're angry and unhappy, but swearing at me is disrespectful and I won't have it." That could be an example of setting a boundary that you're going to hold on to. Setting a boundary can be Setting a boundary can also occur like with friends or family or with work. For example, I recently set a boundary at my job where I said, "I'm tired of working with a headset that no longer works. I'm going to get a better headset." And so I ended up with, at my day job, basically saying, "I need a better headset and I'm going to order one." And I did. I set that boundary for myself, and I set it with my boss, that instead of trying to continually fix a broken headset that wasn't really working that well, that I would just get one that actually did work. These are good examples of the importance of setting boundaries in our lives. We have to learn how to say yes to ourselves and no to other people. It's interesting on this. This is kind of the last video of 2023 for me. Well, one of the last videos. I actually set 2023 as the year of saying yes to myself. In a lot of ways, I succeeded with that. I did learn to say yes to myself a lot of the time. In some ways, I didn't. I reflect on that, and I'm like, there are some aspects of my life that I want to continue to change or transform. Learning how to say yes to myself, though, has been a really powerful um, embodiment of boundaries, because when I say yes to myself, I also do have to say no to other people sometimes. I have to choose myself instead of choosing other people. It's very easy to choose other people, but it's much more important to choose yourself. A lot of times we choose other people because we want to keep the peace. We want to make those people happy. We feel like if we don't keep that peace, then it becomes its own issue. But I think it's really important to say yes to ourselves and say, this is something that's important to me that I can advocate for. It doesn't automatically mean that somebody else will fulfill it, but it does mean that it's important to me. So I think that it's really significant to say yes to ourselves, and to know when to say yes to ourselves, and also know when to say, you know, this is something I can say no to. I can say no to somebody else. I can say, no, I don't have time for this, or no, I don't want to do that right now, or right now I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. These are all valuable things to say, and they're important in our lives. So I recommend that, so that way we can continually discover what our yeses are and what our nos are. And this is part of applying boundaries as a spiritual discipline, because when we learn how to apply it as a spiritual discipline, we're saying, this is something that has value on all levels of my being. So if you're a man who's struggling with this, here's an exercise that I would give you today that you can try. And it's this: spend the next week observing what you are saying yes to, and asking yourself how it makes you feel internally. Do you feel good? Do you feel bad? Just journal about it. Don't change your behaviors for that week, but just spend some time honoring and being aware of what you say yes to and what you're saying no to, and why you're saying it and how it makes you feel. We'll come back to this next week when we explore what to do next after you've done that particular exercise. All right, thanks for watching, and have an excellent week.